The story begins with a man boiling with anger. Someone had just suggested cutting open his father's stomach for surgery, and he couldn't believe it. To him, it was madness, barbaric, something no sane person would ever allow. But the woman across from him stayed calm. She explained that the old man's symptoms pointed to a lass. If ignored, it would rot the intestines, spread a deadly infection called peritonitis, and in the end, kill him. The man snapped back immediately. We can't trust anyone who doesn't use magic. Just improve his monoflow and ease the pain. That's enough. The woman's expression hardened. In an instant, she grabbed him by the collar and yanked him forward. Stop making excuses, she hissed. Look at him. This isn't something you can fix by dulling the pain. If your eyes can't see that, then they're worthless. Better to rip them out and keep them in a jar. Her words struck like a blade. His voice faltered, leaving him speechless. He turned to his father, groaning in agony, and the strength drained out of him. His knees buckled, and he sank to the floor. Who would even do such a thing? He whispered. Cutting open a stomach. I've never even heard of it. The woman didn't hesitate. She tied her hair back, her movements sharp and certain. And she met his eyes. I will, she said. My name is Kiera Belworth, and no matter what it takes, I will save him. Far away, in modern-day Japan, another confrontation unfolded inside an operating room. A tense argument erupted as a woman accused the lead surgeon of lacking the skill to save the patient. At the pace he was going, she warned the patient would die. Kirihara Akira, another surgeon, stepped forward. Step aside. I'll take over. The man's face twisted with arrogance. He didn't care whether Akira was skilled or not. Don't overestimate yourself, he snapped. I'm already handling it. Leave. Akira stared at him in disbelief. This man, treating a life like it's nothing. Her voice sharpened. The patient is bleeding out, and you're wasting time. You're inexperienced, and everyone here can see it. If you don't want to humiliate yourself further, step aside. His pride couldn't bear the blow. He muttered that she would regret it, then stormed out of the room. Akira closed her eyes, steadying her breath. She pushed aside her anger, her fear, everything but the patient lying before her. Then she picked up the instruments and began to operate. When the surgery was done, she was called in by her superior. His words were cold. Leave the hospital. Akira demanded a clear reason. Her superior didn't hesitate. He reminded her that she had thrown Dr. Yamada out of his own operating room and spoken to him harshly. Akira stayed calm. She explained that the patient had been critical and Yamada had acted like an amateur throughout the procedure. She had stepped in to save a life. But her superior shook his head. That's not the real problem, he said. Dr. Yamada's father, a powerful university director, was furious. He had threatened to make the hospital's leadership pay unless Akira was punished for insulting his son. Akira's eyes narrowed. She didn't care who Yamada's father was. She had done the right thing. But her superior's voice turned grave. Your actions have put everyone's career at risk. The safest thing is for you to leave. The words hit like a hammer. He ordered her to pack her things and go. When Akira stepped out, whispers spread behind her. Even the best surgeon can't stand up to power, someone muttered. Others said she had brought this on herself, that she meddled too much with other doctors' patients, that she was arrogant just because she was good. Akira turned and shot them a sharp look before walking away, completely alone. In her mind, she knew she had done only what she thought was right. At home, she cracked open a can of beer and sighed. Cowards, she grumbled. None of them had the guts to say a word to her face. She still couldn't believe Yamada had run crying to his father instead of admitting his lack of skill, or that her own superior had caved so easily. In her eyes, they cared about nothing but the next election for hospital director. For now, she decided to let it go. She'd relax with a book later. She picked up her phone and came across a shoujo manga titled Cinderella's Engagement. It told the story of Kiera, a noble woman mistreated by her family who faced one hardship after another while slowly drawing closer to a prince. Stories like that were popular lately, but Akira rarely read manga herself. Before she knew it, she was completely absorbed. When a character hesitated instead of stopping the bleeding, she found herself yelling at her phone. Stop crying and treat them already. Akira couldn't believe what she was reading. The characters in the manga were just standing around, not even calling for a doctor. And worse, why weren't they using healing magic? It looked so convenient, yet they wasted time chatting while the patient was clearly dying. She groaned in frustration. Seriously? Too many characters in this manga end up dead. What annoyed her even more was that the heroine only cried instead of doing anything to help. The protagonist, Kiera, was the eldest daughter of a powerful count's family, one known for producing skilled magicians for generations. But Kiera had been born without magic. Because of that, her stepmother and half-sister treated her like an outcast. Still, Kiera endured it all, clinging to the hope that marriage would finally set her free. That hope shattered when her fiancé was stolen away by her half-sister. From then on, misfortune piled on top of misfortune until she met the prince, and a fragile bond slowly began to form between them. But in this story, even important characters died without mercy. The dark, tragic tone was what made the manga popular. Akira didn't see the appeal. She was tired of the heroine's endless tears. She just cries while everyone protecting her dies one after another, Akira muttered. Still, as much as she complained, Akira saw herself in Kiera. She, too, had once cried endlessly when her father died, apologizing again and again for being powerless. But unlike the heroine, Akira thought, if it were me, I'd save everyone. Then a harsh thought struck her. A surgeon like her, thrown into a world with no X-rays, no CT scans, no modern tools? That would only be a nightmare. She wasn't interested in indulging in such impossible fantasies. With a sigh, she put her phone aside, deciding to sleep. But the moment she closed her eyes, a sharp wave of dizziness slammed into her. A crushing pain split through her skull. She groaned, clutching the back of her head. Panic shot through her as she tried to grab her phone to call an ambulance. But before she could, everything went black. Time passed. When she finally woke up, her first instinct was to cry out from the pain, but it was gone. Just like that. Her mind raced. Was that a subarachnoid hemorrhage? She sat up, ready to call for help, but froze. The room around her was enormous, decorated in a way she had only ever seen in period dramas or old mansions. Heavy curtains, carved furniture, chandeliers. This wasn't her apartment. Confused, she wondered if she had gone insane. But her headache was gone, her body was fine, no signs of paralysis. She tested her movements carefully. Everything was normal. Still dazed, she wandered the room until she stopped in front of a mirror. Her heart skipped. The face staring back at her wasn't her own. No matter how much she wanted to deny it, somehow, she had turned into Kiera Bellworth, the heroine of Cinderella's engagement. Not long after, Kiera was served tea. She thanked the maid, Anna, and froze. That was when it finally hit her. This wasn't a dream. She had really become Kiera Bellworth. What unsettled her most was that she carried Kiera's memories as if they were her own. She knew the entire family structure, every detail of the household, even the maid's name. Things Kirihara Akira should never have known. Her mind spun with possibilities. Was this like those reincarnation stories she had seen in manga? Had her soul slipped into Kiera's body? Or had Kiera been imagining her all along? But the memories of the hospital were too vivid, too raw, to dismiss as a dream. And more importantly, her medical knowledge was intact. That alone proved this was real. Akira forced herself to calm down. Sitting here panicking would solve nothing. She needed to think. If she remembered correctly, there was supposed to be a ball hosted by the Duchess soon. That was when Kiera would secretly meet the prince and begin to fall for him. But Kiera had already been engaged at the time, and those feelings went nowhere. Not long after, her father would die in an accident, and that tragedy would spark the chain of events that destroyed her life. Her stepmother would seize control of the Bellworth family. Her fiancé would be taken by her younger sister. Stripped of her place in the household, Kiera would be reduced to little more than a servant. Later, she would grow closer to the prince again, but jealousy would make her a target, dragging her into constant misery. That was as far as Akira had read. Beyond that, she didn't know the ending. But in a story this dark, she doubted it was a happy one. Akira clenched her fists. She wanted no part of that. If she was going to live as Kiera, she would carve out a quiet, peaceful life. No dramatic encounters, no tragedies. That meant one thing above all. She had to avoid meeting the prince. But the ball was still coming. Just then, the door creaked open. A girl stepped inside and called softly, "Sister." She looked at Kiera with concern. "Are you feeling all right?" Her younger sister had come because Kiera hadn't shown up for breakfast. Worried, she asked if Kiera was still feeling sick. Kiera smiled faintly and said she was fine. The girl was Federica, her half-sister. Unlike Kiera, Federica had inherited a natural gift for magic. On the surface, she always spoke kindly, but her words often carried a hidden sting. This time was no different. Federica told her not to strain herself and suggested she skip the ball that evening. She even offered to explain the situation to Richard, Kiera's fiancé, and attend at her place. Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice with a smirk. Richard called me the belle of the ball. Your fiancé certainly knows how to charm with words, doesn't he? The remark was meant to wound, but instead, Kiera felt relieved. Perfect. Let her go instead. Her calm reaction caught Federica off guard. Kiera even pressed a hand to her forehead, groaning dramatically. I'm not feeling well at all. I really can't make it tonight. Federica blinked, clearly surprised. I'll rest, she said softly. You and Richard enjoy the evening together. And just like that, the first problem, meeting the prince, was solved. But a greater challenge remained, her father's death. In the original story, it was barely described, just a line or two. Count Bruno died when his carriage suddenly went out of control, and that single tragedy set everything into motion. This time, Akira, now Kiera, was determined to change it. All she needed was to keep her father from getting into that carriage on that day. The problem was how? She couldn't destroy the carriage outright. That would be too suspicious. Burning it was dangerous, and she could never bring herself to harm the horses. With so many servants around, anything reckless would surely be discovered. As she stared out the window, her gaze landed on the horse barn. Slowly, an idea began to take shape. Something simple, something she could do in just a few minutes. Later, the Count stormed out to find his carriage stuffed with hay and smeared with horse manure. His face twisted with disgust. What is the meaning of this? The attendants scrambled to apologize. They offered to ready another carriage, but only for his return trip. With no other choice, the Count grudgingly decided to walk to his meeting. Before leaving, he ordered the carriage spotless by evening. The servants were left whispering in shock. Who would dare tamper with the Count's carriage? Should they report this to the madam? To Federica? No one had seen Kiera around, and it didn't seem like she was hiding in her room, as usual. In truth, Kiera had already slipped quietly out of the estate. Kiera followed her father from a safe distance, watching carefully to make sure her plan worked. To her relief, Count Bruno arrived at his destination without incident. The accident that had claimed his life in the original story would not happen today. She finally let out a breath. Good. At least I don't have to worry about father anymore. But then, nearby, a group of men began talking about another carriage they had seen on a different street. They said it was in terrible shape, and they feared some might have died. Kiera froze. No, did I just shift the tragedy onto someone else? She had been so focused on saving her father's life that she never even considered another cause behind the accident. Heart pounding, she hurried toward the scene. When she arrived, she found a carriage tipped on its side. She pushed through the crowd and called out, "Step aside. I'm a doctor. I'll check the injured." But one of the men stopped her. "No need, miss. Look closer." Servants were already lifting the carriage upright. No blood, no bodies. The man explained that the carriage had swerved to avoid a child who ran into the road. It struck a cart and flipped, but miraculously, no one had died. No serious injuries either. Relief washed over Kiera, her knees almost giving out. At that moment, a woman was furiously scolding her young son. The boy stammered that he had only been trying to save a cat. His mother grew harsher, telling him he had caused nothing but trouble. Then, another voice cut through the tension. "Don't be too hard on him." Everyone turned. A man had stepped forward. His tone was calm, but firm. The boy must have been frightened, too. The woman bowed quickly, flustered. "My lord, please forgive us, Lord Cecil. I am so sorry my son caused your carriage to crash, and that you were injured." Kiera's eyes widened. "Lord Cecil?" The man touched the faint cut on his cheek and gave a reassuring smile. "It's only a scratch. The carriage is barely damaged. The horses are fine. There's no need to worry." What stunned Kiera wasn't just his words, but the way he carried himself, composed, gracious, completely unshaken despite the accident. When Kiera looked closer, her heart nearly stopped. Prince Cecil, why was he here? And more importantly, this accident had never happened in the original story. One of Cecil's attendants stepped forward, reporting that a replacement carriage had been arranged. Cecil thanked him, but his sharp gaze immediately softened when he noticed the man breathing heavily. "Cliff, are you all right?" The attendant forced a smile. "I hit my chest when we fell. It's nothing serious." But his voice soon broke into a groan. His hand clutched his ribs as the pain worsened. Cecil's expression hardened. "Don't push yourself. We'll have a healer look at you right away." The widowed mother apologized again, bowing low, terrified that she had caused all of this. She stammered that she couldn't possibly afford compensation. But Cecil dismissed her fears with a gentle shake of his head. "No payment is necessary. Please, focus on your son's safety. This was an accident." Kiera understood then. Cecil must have been traveling in secret, without the full presence of guards or fanfare. But she also realized something else. This entire chain of events had only happened because she tampered with her father's carriage. Guilt gnawed at her, but worse still, Cliff's condition was deteriorating before her eyes. "Cough, huh?" The man staggered, wheezing now. "It's getting harder to breathe." Panic rippled through the attendants. Cecil snapped an order. "Prepare another carriage at once. We're going to the medical center." Kiera's fists clenched. In this world, medicine was inseparable from magic. Healing mages could knit flesh and bones together with light alone. And she had no magic at all. Compared to them, what was an ordinary doctor from her past life work? But watching Cliff's face pale, hearing his shallow gasps, her conscience refused to stay silent. "Wait!" All eyes turned to her. Kiera stepped forward, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm a doctor. Let me examine him right now." The prince's brows drew together in disbelief. "You? A doctor?" But Kiera had no patience for doubt. She brushed past him, kneeling before Cliff, already unbuttoning his coat. She pressed her fingers against his throat, feeling for his pulse, then leaned close, her ear against his chest. The rhythm was uneven, his breath shallow. She tapped lightly against his rib cage. The sound on the right side was dull, muted. Her stomach sank. "No," she whispered. "Not just a bruise." Rising quickly, she addressed them all. "It's a pneumothorax, a collapsed lung. Air is leaking into his chest cavity and crushing his lung from the inside." Blank stares met her words. Cecil frowned, confused. Kiera's gaze burned with urgency. If this pressure keeps building, it won't stop at his lung. It will squeeze his heart until it stops. He'll suffocate if we don't relieve it now. If the air wasn't released soon, Cliff would die. But the attendants still stared at her blankly, as if she were speaking another language. Kiera bit her lip. Of course, people in this world had no concept of such medical problems. Her words, however, made Prince Cecil frown in thought. His eyes sharpened as he recalled a battlefield memory. "I once saw a soldier shot in the chest." His breathing grew worse and worse until Cecil's voice trailed off. His expression darkened. "He died." Kiera quickly seized on his understanding. "Exactly. This is the same situation." The prince's jaw tightened. "Then no matter the cost, I'll pay anything if it means saving Cliff." One of the attendants stepped forward. "Your Highness, perhaps we can seal the hole with healing magic." Kiera shook her head sharply. "That won't work." The attendants blinked. "Why not?" "Because I have no magic power." Gasps spread among the onlookers. Even the crowd of bystanders murmured in disbelief. A healer without magic? To them, it was like claiming to be a knight without a sword. The prince's eyes narrowed. "Then, are you not a healer at all?" Kiera raised her chin. "I'm not a healer. I'm a doctor. I don't use magic, but I do have knowledge. Knowledge that can save his life." One attendant scoffed. "A fake doctor. Your Highness, we should ignore her and take Cliff to the medical center at once." Kiera's eyes flashed with anger. "Fake? Quack." That word cut deeper than she expected. "Say that again," she said coldly, "and I'll sew your rude mouth shut myself." The attendant recoiled, shocked by her sudden sharpness. Kiera pressed on. "Listen carefully. Traveling to the medical center will take far too long. Cliff may not survive the trip. And even if you drag him there, healing magic won't save him. Too much air has already built up inside his chest. The first step is to release it." As if to confirm her words, Cliff groaned again, his breaths becoming faint and ragged. Prince Cecil turned back to her, his voice low and steady. "Can you truly remove the air?" "Yes," Kiera replied firmly, "but I'll need the right tools." The prince's gaze grew distant as another memory surfaced. He remembered a soldier once collapsing after a battle. A healer had sealed the wound instantly, but when the soldier's breathing worsened, the healer shrugged, blaming the man for being too weak. "What else can I do?" The healer had sneered. "The visible injury is healed. If he dies, it's his own fault." Cecil's fist clenched. That soldier had died, gasping for air. Now, Kiera's urgent words fit perfectly with what he had seen back then. Slowly, he faced her again. "Very well. If you say you can save him, I'll believe you. Tell me what you need, and I'll make sure you get it. For a moment, Kiera's throat tightened. She hadn't expected a prince to put his trust in her, a powerless stranger with no magic. But when she saw Cliff's pale, weakening face, she nodded firmly. I'll do everything I can. There's no time, Kiera said firmly. I'll perform a chest puncture. I need to pierce his chest and release the air that's crushing his lungs. The attendants froze in shock. She quickly explained, normally, I'd use a syringe. Since I don't have one, I need something to replace it. A narrow pipe will do. Her eyes darted around until she spotted a nearby shop. A long, thin pipe. Bring it now, she ordered. Then she turned to another attendant. I'll also need strong liquor and a thin, sharp knife. Cecil wasted no time. Royce, go. Do exactly as she says. The attendants scattered, and even bystanders rushed to help. Soon, Kiera had what she needed. She snapped the steel pipe in half, then uncorked the liquor and poured it over the knives. She rubbed the rest into her hands, the alcohol burning her skin. Hold his arms, she commanded. Two men knelt down and pinned Cliff's trembling body in place. Her heart pounded. The procedure itself was simple, but without sterile tools, clean conditions, or medical equipment, it was terrifyingly risky. Still, hesitation would kill him faster. She drew a steadying breath, found the spot just above the third rib, and pressed the knife down. Cliff groaned in agony as the blade cut into his chest. Kiera gritted her teeth and pushed the makeshift pipe into the opening. A faint hiss filled the air. Everyone watched, wide-eyed, as bubbles of escaping air slipped out through the pipe. Slowly, Cliff's chest began to rise more evenly. His shallow, ragged gasps steadied into something closer to normal breathing. It worked, someone whispered. Kiera didn't smile. This is only first aid. He's still in danger. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for false hope. Keep the pipe in place. Don't let it shift. With her guidance, they lifted Cliff into the carriage. The prince turned to her, his expression filled with relief and questions. Come with us, Cecil urged. I need to know. But when he turned back, Kiera was gone. She had vanished into the crowd without a sound. Far away from the scene, Kiera's hands trembled. She knew all too well what she had just done. The pipe could slip. His broken ribs might be causing internal bleeding, leading to hemothorax. And without proper sanitation, infection was almost guaranteed. I abandoned him, she thought bitterly. I might have left him to die, but she clenched her fists. Staying would have been worse. If the prince had recognized her, everything would have spiraled into disaster. For now, disappearing was the only choice she had. At least she had managed to prevent her father's death. That small victory gave her a sense of relief, though her empty stomach quickly reminded her of reality. Deciding to head for the kitchen, she walked down the hall, only to stop short. Richard was there, laughing softly as he leaned close to Federica. When he noticed her, he straightened and greeted her with a polished smile. Kiera, it's been a while. I heard you weren't feeling well. Are you better now? I'm fine, she answered evenly. Sorry I couldn't accompany you the other day. But why are you with Federica? Richard held up a jeweled hair ornament. This fell into my carriage after the ball. I came to return it. Kiera's eyes narrowed. Of course it did. She knew her sister well enough to recognize the ploy. Federica had planted it there on purpose. What stung more was that Richard had gone straight to Federica instead of greeting his own fiancé first. His heart was already wandering. You didn't need to come all the way yourself, Kiera said lightly. A servant could have returned it. Richard chuckled, though his tone carried a bite. That's just like you, isn't it? Cold and detached. Always leaving things to others. He sighed dramatically. Women these days are all trying to make their own way. Look at Federica, top marks at the academy, admired by her peers. Meanwhile, you hide away in your room, doing nothing. Kiera opened her mouth to retort, but he waved her off. Learn from your sister. Work harder. Try to stand on your own feet. And with that, he excused himself, leaving Kiera standing in silence. Her stepmother appeared just in time to twist the knife. Such progressive thinking, she praised, watching Richard's back disappear. Our family will be secure if he marries into it. Federica gave a mock-innocent smile. You're so lucky, sister. Engaged to such a wonderful man. But do try to be a little more likable. Kiera forced a trembling, excuse me, and stepped away, keeping her face carefully composed until she was out of sight. Inside, her heart was steady. Good. Everything is following the story. In the manga, Richard eventually swallowed Federica's lies, that Kiera mistreated her family and servants, and he was the one who broke the engagement. Now that her father was alive, the balance of power had shifted. Her stepmother and Federica would not have free reign anymore. She had no desire to marry Richard. But if the engagement ended the wrong way, she risked being cast out. And in this world, a noblewoman thrown onto the streets rarely survived. So, for now, she would play along, pretend to be oblivious, wait for the right moment. She still didn't understand why she had ended up in this world, but one thing was certain: she would not meekly follow the path laid out for her. Not anymore. 2 weeks slipped by, yet Kiera still had no clear plan. One evening, she found herself at a grand ball. Count and Countess Felsen welcomed her warmly, reminding her not to be so formal. They were practically family, after all. As Richard's parents, they were hosting the ball at the Felsen estate, his home. Kiera knew that this was the worst possible place to bring up breaking the engagement. If she tried, the Felsens would surely fight to keep her bound to their son. When they noticed Richard was nowhere in sight, they were surprised he had left his fiancée alone. Kiera calmly explained that he had gone to meet friends. Of course, she could not reveal that he had actually gone to be with Federica. To ease their concern, she offered to fetch him so they could greet everyone together later. The Felsens exchanged a glance, quietly wondering if Kiera had always carried herself with such composure. Walking away, Kiera felt the familiar weight of gatherings pressing on her. She didn't dislike people. She simply found these endless social games exhausting. Her plan was simple: circle the venue, claim a headache, and leave early. But just then, a ripple of chatter caught her attention. Nearby guests gossiped about the Crown Prince, recently returned from studying abroad. Some whispered that he rarely appeared in public. Others claimed he was quietly traveling the kingdom to learn about its current state. Rumor had it he had attended another ball already, and they eagerly wondered if he would appear tonight. Their giggles grated on Kiera's nerves. She knew that as long as she remained part of high society, there was always the chance of crossing paths with the prince, a possibility she did not welcome. Before she could slip away, a voice rang out over the crowd. "Kiera." Richard stood across the hall, Federica at his side. His expression was solemn, but his voice was triumphant. "In front of everyone here, I have decided to end our engagement." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Kiera froze, stunned along with the rest of the guests. Richard's next words cut like a blade. "I've heard everything from Federica. She told me how you mistreated her and her mother. And the servants of the Belworth household confirmed it, that you treated your own sister like a maid, insulted her with cruel words. I can't overlook such heartlessness any longer." The hall fell into silence, every eye on Kiera. Federica's voice trembled as tears spilled down her cheeks. "My own sister. She called me a useless freeloader. And worse, she mocked our mother, saying she was worthless for not bearing a male heir." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kiera's eyes widened. "That's a lie. I never." But Federica's sobs only grew louder, drowning her out. "I don't care what she says about me," Federica cried, clutching her handkerchief dramatically. "But to insult mother like that, it's unbearable." Murmurs swelled through the hall. Guests shook their heads, glaring at Kiera. How cruel. So heartless. Kiera clenched her fists. She couldn't believe these people were falling for such a tired, transparent act. Yet Richard's voice struck the final blow. "I refuse to marry you, Kiera," he declared coldly. "Even if our parents arranged it, I won't tolerate your cruelty. From this day forward, our engagement is over. Everyone here shall bear witness to my decision." Applause of agreement followed him, a wave of support for the Felsens. Kiera stood frozen, the weight of every eye pressing down on her. Her position in society was collapsing. Her chance of inheriting her family's estate vanished like smoke. And her father, so obsessed with appearances, would never lift a finger to defend her. But Kiera refused to crumble. She slapped her cheek lightly, steadying herself. "I expected this. I've always stood alone. I won't bow to this pitiful farce. If they want to fight, I'll give them one." Raising her chin, she said coolly, "I understand your position, Richard." But her words were cut off by another voice. Low, commanding, and unmistakably royal. "This conversation is one-sided and unjust." The ballroom fell silent. Kiera turned, her breath catching. Standing among the stunned guests was a man she had not expected to see, Prince Cecil himself, his sharp gaze fixed on Richard. "Tell me," he said, his voice ringing across the hall, "why do you humiliate a young woman in public, parading yourself as the victim? It is clear you only wish to ruin her reputation." Federica's tears dried instantly as she snapped back. I'm only exposing my sister's cruelty. Cecil's expression hardened. Accusations without proof are not truth. They are slander. Richard's face twisted with anger. And who are you to speak so brazenly? I don't recall inviting a rude stranger to my family's ball. The prince's smirk was calm, unshaken. Of course you don't. I wasn't invited. A friend brought me here in secret. He straightened, his presence suffocating the hall. I am Cecil Vanlenberg. A collective gasp echoed. The crown prince had just stepped into the game. Cecil's voice carried effortlessly across the ballroom. Perhaps many of you don't recognize me. I've been away from the kingdom for some time, but I am Cecil Vanlenberg, first prince of this realm. A collective gasp swept through the guests. Every head turned, every whisper died. Richard stiffened, his bravado faltering. Why would His Highness even attend this ball? Cecil's lips curved into a sly smile. Because I've been searching. A noble lady, someone unforgettable. I knew not her name, so I slipped into every gathering I could, hoping to find her. His gaze slid, deliberate and unyielding, to Kiera. And now at last I have. The crowd followed his eyes. Kiera's heart jolted, her body tense as he stepped closer. My dear doctor, he said softly, almost teasing. Tell me, are you not Kiera? Kiera's breath caught. I don't know what you mean, she managed, trying to deflect. But Cecil only shook his head. Do not deny me. You've no idea the trouble I went through to find you again. Richard snapped, stepping between them. This matter is strictly between the Felsons and the Belworths. Your Highness has no reason to interfere. Cecil's gaze darkened. You parade your scandal before society, yet now you call it private? How convenient. Still, he knew Richard was partly right. As a prince, he was technically an outsider in family disputes. Unless he gave himself a reason to intervene. With deliberate grace, Cecil moved past Richard and stopped before Kiera. Slowly, in full view of everyone, he bent to one knee and took her hand. The hall erupted into murmurs. Kiera froze, every instinct screaming that this was spiraling beyond her control. Kiera, Cecil said, his voice firm and clear, I have searched for you these past weeks. From the day we met, I have never forgotten you. And now, before all present, I ask, will you give me your hand in marriage? The room fell silent. Shock rippled through the crowd. Richard's face twisted with fury. Outrageous. To propose to her, of all people. You jest, Your Highness. Cecil turned his head, his eyes like steel. Do I look like I jest? Then, softer, he looked back to Kiera. Her mind whirled. This was madness. Marriage to the prince? Impossible. Yet his lips moved silently, just for her. Say yes. Her voice betrayed her before her reason could stop it. Yes. A brilliant smile spread across Cecil's face. He rose, pulling her gently to his side. Then hear me, all of you. From this moment forth, Kiera Belworth is my fiancé. His gaze swept across the stunned assembly, daring anyone to object. Now, who will call me an outsider again? The hall bowed into silence. No one dared.